where Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei accused enemies of the Islamic Republic of stirring unrest across the country as a crackdown intensified against anti-government demonstrations that began last week. Police have now arrested more than 450 protesters in the capital, Tehran, over the past 3 days. Protesters also attacked police stations elsewhere in Iran.
نظام اسلامی و جمهوری اسلامی و انقلاب اسلامی مشکل درست کنن. حالا من انشالله حرفایی دارم راجع به این قضایای این چند روز با مردم عزیزمون حرف دارم. من حرف خواهم زد انشالله در وقت خودش.
A nation of 60 million is on the boil. Hundreds of Iranians have taken to the streets. Some are protesting their dismal economic situation. Others, the rigidness of the religious institutions that rule Iran. Along with its ally Syria, many Iranian demonstrators also want their country to stop supporting Syria, but also overseas militant organizations like the Hamas and Hezbollah, and divert that funding to solve the country's dire economic crisis instead. But are the demonstrations in Iran and their spread like wildfire, especially through the social media, really all that surprising? The Russians left their mark on elections in the United States as they, along with Wikipedia founder Julian Assange, did on a controversial and banned referendum for separation in Spain's Catalonia. Even Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro saw fit to support separatists in Catalonia, if only to annoy Madrid from all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. So are the sudden demonstrations in Iran, the first of their kind since 2009, entirely indigenous, or have the people come out on the streets knowing the world's watching? The protests were being pushed by Saudi Arabia, which was trying to destabilize the country along with the US and Israel, is what the president has stated. Let's now take you through those foes and what their motivation could be to stoke the fires of protests in Iran, in which 13 demonstrators have already lost their lives and which show no signs of abating. US President Donald Trump had said, and I'm quoting, "The good people of Iran want change. Iran's people are what their leaders fear the most." Saudi Arabia's Salman had called Iran leader Ayatollah Khamenei the new Hitler of the Middle East. Israel had stated, and I'm quoting, "Iran's cruel regime wastes billions of dollars spreading hate," unquote. The main thrusts of the protests may be Iran's abysmal economic situation and growing joblessness. And yet, rumors that Israel and Saudi Arabia, newfound friends in the Middle East, along with the US, have engineered the protests in Iran, will not die down. Oil-rich Iran was brought back into focus as a rogue state by President Donald Trump from the day he took office last January. And there are astoundingly loud claims emanating from the United States, even as the protests in Iran continue to rage. What stands out starkly is Washington's determination and hint of some imminent action, whatever that may be, in no uncertain terms. US Vice President Mike Pence has said, and I'm quoting, "The bold and growing resistance of the Irani people gives hope. We must not and will not let them down." Let's go straight across now to M. Moghadam, who is a professor at the University of Oslo, who's joining us in the broadcast for more on this. To your mind, if you compare the protests in 2009 to the latest ones, what stands out as being the major contrast? And if you dissect the reasons behind these protests, what surprises you the most?
Well, you see, these protests, as you mentioned, started as a reaction to the rising prices, but very soon developed into protests against the whole system. What separates these demonstrations from the ones in 2009 is that this time they are not distinguishing between different factions within the Islamic Republic. You know, at that time we had a presidential candidate who actually led the movement. Now people are watching outside the Islamic Republic. They are pointing their protests against the supreme leader, and in this way these protests are much more dangerous. Another difference is that these protests are much more widespread than the ones in 2009. At that time, they were mainly concentrated in major cities among the upper middle class. Now we see them all over the country, although they are smaller in size, but cover most of the country, even the ethnic areas. So I think that potentially these protests are much more dangerous for the Islamic Republic, and I think they have recognized that.
To your mind, when you also dissect the contrasts between these protests and the ones in 2009, to your mind, is there reason to believe that these protests could be purely indigenous?
No. I mean, let's be clear. Iranians who come on the street in these days, they are protesting against the system, against the regime which has denied them the most fundamental rights for the past 40 years. And beside that, they every time they have tried to protest or express their opinion, they have been met with a crackdown by the regime side. So when they get an opportunity like this, they grab it. And I think that these protests, Iranian authorities say that they are engineered from outside. I don't believe in that at all. We are in contact with people on a daily basis. Besides being a suppressive regime, it's also a very corrupt regime. We have rising unemployment in Iran. People are becoming poorer and poorer in a country which has lots of natural resources. And where does this money go? It's disappeared in the corrupt system.
And as a result of that corrupt mechanism, this economic deprivation that the locals have been protesting against has spiraled out of control. We're going to leave it there for the moment. Moghadam, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast with all of those perspectives.